Havovi, namaste.
Namaste.
What is the clinical definition of trauma?
Trauma is your response to something that has happened to you. It is not the thing that happens to you. There are a lot of people who cannot process at the time that it happens. Your system becomes a pressure cooker. You're not lifting the whistle, right? So it's just there. And then one day it just bursts. Progress is like an ECG. You're going to see some really dark days and you're like, I feel like I'm back to step one. I say this to a lot of people who I work with. You're not back to step one. Don't put yourself back there. I always say, make mental health a living room conversation. It's very rare to find leaders who are achieving large and big who don't have narcissistic traits. You know, healing takes a very long time, but if you decide to take a step and do little bit every day, little drops of water make a mighty ocean. You'll get somewhere with yourself. You don't need to take so much of work that you don't go back home to your wife and children.
So if you had to say something to Narayan Murthy,
Then I would tell anybody who's addicted to work for whatever reason. It could be that they have seen their own parent work in this manner, and work is worship. While work is worship, then you cannot really blame somebody. You might be the best mind on the planet and very successful at what you do, but you also need to show up at home. The relationship that you need to show up for the most is the one you have with yourself. Because when you stop working tomorrow and you're left with nothing, you're left with you. And if you are not happy with you, what was the point of this journey?
Havovi, namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome to the LSM podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time after your big presence on the Ranveer show. We are so glad to have you here.
So happy to be here with you guys.
I'm going to explore a few themes
Sure.
today with you. I want to start with the theme of trauma.
Okay.
We've heard a lot of conversation online about trauma, and also we've seen that people are now, using that word a lot more. So specifically speaking, as far as kind of study is concerned, what is the clinical definition of trauma?
Okay. So my very, very favorite reference to explaining trauma to anybody for that matter is the work of Gabor Mate. And what Gabor explains is that trauma is your response to something that has happened to you. It is not the thing that happens to you, but it is your body in response to what has happened, right? We all have different coping mechanisms. So that is what that emotion is. How you cope with what has happened to you, that's what trauma is. I know that, in this day and age, we use the word trauma extremely loosely. But clinically, what it does is that it totally cripples your existence.
What do you mean by that cripples your existence?
So-
like, if we just break it down to
of course.
a use case of somebody without, referring to them.
Sure. Let's just talk about it broadly then. So let's just say that there has been, let's say some sort of abuse, for example. It could be physical, it could be verbal, it could be sexual. What happens then is how you are going to cope with this trauma is very, very subjective. You will also see there are people who become reclusive. You will see a lot of signs like with respect to, let's say, children, or with respect to people also. Just to cope with trauma, they become reclusive. They don't know how to process it. They also get very detached. That's the thing about trauma. It detaches you from yourself. And people who come as victims of abuse and have experienced trauma, what we do with them is that we are constantly trying to reintegrate them into themselves again. So that is what it is. So how it works is you'll see a lot of, let's take the example of a person who's been an extrovert. Something happens to that person. Let's say there's been some physical violence and it's been repeated. You will see this person that there are times that you will become recluse. You will also change the way your energy is outwardly. You might not talk to as many people. You might not go out as much. You might not, you're eating, you're sleeping, all of these things take a hit. The primitive things take a hit. So you will see there is a vast, drastic change in just your emotional regulation. There's a lot of dysregulation in the system because you're just trying to cope and fathom first what happened. There are a lot of people who cannot process at the time that it happens. They're not able to process it. Like we were talking initially, right? We have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. A lot of people are able to fight it. A lot of people are able to sort of run away from it. Okay? And these are all coping mechanisms. There's freezing. You know, you'll hear a lot of like Hindi movies saying, oh, but you didn't do anything about it. How come? How come you didn't at that point in time? It's because your nervous system froze. That is the response that you have. And then there is fawning. People speak very little about fawning. You befriend the thing that is attacking you. Unfortunately, that's a coping mechanism that a lot of people have.
That's like with a lot of people pleasers.
It is with people pleasers. It's also when we are young, for example, and we live in an abusive environment. When you're young, you don't have any financial support, you don't have any emotional support, and this is coming, let's just say, from your immediate caregivers. You have nowhere to go. So what do you do? How do you survive? What are your options? You don't have any options left. So somehow your system just learns to make it a friend, which is very warped when you actually listen to it.
Yeah.
But it happens.
Okay, so that's, there's a lot which you said in the last few sentences about trauma, and I feel like people can rehear that. And I want to talk about this fawn and maybe a little bit about freeze and what can be the right response. So when we talk about fawn, I think what you're also talking about is the power dynamic kind of there in Indian family systems.
Yeah.
Because you can fawn because really maybe the one who's the protector of your family or the caregiver of your family or the bread earner of your family may be the one who may have caused you trauma.
Yes.
Or it may be an uncle or a chachaji who is, there's a power dynamic between people, and then you just can't say anything. So then you end up fawning. So what happens in such a scenario to the person who is fawning? Like, firstly, I can understand why it happens. Because it's natural that
it is a natural response. All of us are born with some natural response that we either learn from, like a very primitive part of us, or we will learn it from the environment. So what happens to people, like, to be very honest, it changes your life also. Like fawning also happens because it's over a period of time and there's a certain continuity in the abuse that is being tolerated. It's as if, I give this example a lot, your system becomes a pressure cooker. And then it's just there. You're not lifting the whistle, right? So it's just there. The flame is on high, it's on high. And then one day it just bursts.
What happens when it just bursts? Like, that's what I'm asking. What are those signs? So, when I've repressed this trauma.
Yes, I'll tell you what happens. So with respect to this example, it's not just the kitchen that gets dirty. It is your hall, it is your bedroom, it is your garage, it is all parts of your home that gets dirty. It trickles into all parts of your life because you've suppressed this so hard, because facing it it's terrible, it's painful. The pain is larger than any physical pain possible. And I've seen this with my very own eyes. It disrupts the whole system that you have not touched for a long time. So you start living in a very detached reality because you have to function. Life moves on. That's what we are taught, right? Life moves on. Ye sab ke saath hota hai. All of these dialogues that we are brought up with. You start moving on. Once you face it, once you face this monster, it's going to affect your productivity. Whether you're at home, whether you're at work, it's hit people in the face during presentations. Like, I know people who are walking on the road and one day they've just fallen to the floor. What happens at a very internal level? You become hyper independent. And this hyper independency, for whatever reason, one day if you get triggered into a space where you can't avoid it, psychosomatically you will drop to the floor. And this has happened to very healthy people. I've had people who've come and they're like, we have nothing to show in our physical reports. They are like spot on. We did an MRI and we did a PET scan and we went to this blood test and that blood test and BP is fine, everything's fine, but we just dropped to the floor. So it's your body not being able to cope up with the constant repression and suppression that you've done. While it has served the purpose that you've come such a long way, people are also dropping eventually because they just can't. You have so much happening in the media right now, right? Like you see all sorts of things and people don't have a sense of mental hygiene when it comes to, taking in things digitally as well. They see something, it'll take a matter of minutes for that person to crumble.
Yeah, I feel like, so I did some work on myself, guided by a therapist on internal family systems.
Right.
So it was, kind of where I tried to decipher the many selves. And then I realized that there was, when you talk about somatic responses, there was stuff, there were particular situations I was going into, particularly conflicting situations where my body would just freeze. Or my body would have a very, I would start shivering inside for, I don't know what reason. And then I just couldn't come up with what was happening there. And then I had to meet my younger self. I had to really go and really sit with and spend time with my
younger self. And make yourself feel safe to come out.
Yeah. And show that younger self, because that's a pattern that my mind was probably blocked in. And to show my younger self that this is who I've now become and that it's now safe. So I'm not getting blocked into it again. Or I also realized through a lot of work on myself that there was a time when I was really working my way through. And I was being the ox, the working ox of my organization. And I felt like I was working with 3 or 4 people who were my partners, business partners back then, who weren't carrying enough weight. But they were quote unquote equal in that sense. But instead of confronting that reality, or rather fight. So that's my next, I just want to discuss whether one should fight or flight, or what's the right way. But I didn't fight because I just I didn't have the capabilities to do it.
Yeah.
Or my skills at that time weren't adequate enough. So I then went into food. And I started, so that I guess would be, some amount of flight. I flighted to food. And then because food was there, I flighted to drugs because somebody said to me that, look, smoke weed because the food will taste better. Right. So it was more flight and going more and more away from myself. And then I was like, till I just looked at myself in the mirror, I'm not me. And then, then I kind of opened up to a coach of mine. I said, this is I'm trying to get out of the habit of drugs for almost 3 years. I'd wake up in the morning, Google what are the harmful effects of drugs, and I'd be reading that. But in the night, I had a joint in my hand.
So those are trauma responses. Those are all trauma responses. Just to elevate the pain of the moment. Those are temporary fixes, but they have very permanent repercussions in the body, in the system.
Can you expand that a bit more? And I want to complete this also, but I want you to expand that. So, because I'm trying to put just context to what you're saying, because I feel like I've been through some trauma work myself. Right. So I just want to put that context to maybe the listeners. And if I'm going wrong somewhere, you can please correct me.
So addiction, a lot of people say that, trauma leads to addiction and things like that. No, it's just a coping mechanism. You are in so much pain at that point in time, you don't know how to deal with it. So the first thing that sort of relieves you is what you are going to go to, right? So in your case, if it might be emotional eating, food, right? In your case, you very it takes a lot of courage to say this, that, you took the support of drugs. And you came to realize that, this does not work. A lot of people unfortunately end up, with a biological dependency because the body gets used to a certain level of chemicals, etc., etc. Till one day you realize that this is not working. This is not the healthy way out. I need to do something better. So, you work through it, which is a very, very big thing. And I know that it was not a linear upward graph for you. It would be like this. I always say it's like progress is like an ECG. You're going to see some really dark days and you're like, I feel like I'm back to step one. And I say this to a lot of people who I work with. You're not back to step one. Don't say that I'm back to square one. Don't put yourself back there. You've had a bad day. We work from here, but you've come a very long way. And it's definitely not square one.
Yeah. I also want to ask you, and thank you for acknowledging that. And I read a lot of the comments on the Ranveer show episode. A lot of them were with respect to the cost of therapy. And I know that we have infrastructure challenges in India also, because I think at last count, we have one therapist for 3 lakh people. Yeah. Whereas in other societies, it would be one for 10,000 people. And more advanced, economically advanced societies. I wouldn't say advanced, but economically well-off societies. It's 1 by 10,000, whereas we have 1 to 3 lakh. A lot of people are commenting about saying, okay, cost. And I come from a, slightly more privileged background, or not slightly more, I'll just acknowledge that I am privileged. And so I can, possibly afford it.
Yes.
Now, and I'm not saying it should get cheaper, because I think skill and craft has a price. Yes. And people like yourself who put in a lot of work deserve to be compensated for that. So what's the other way out? One is we have a supply gap. Yeah. Second is that we have, and the price is going to be what it's going to be.
Yes. I also don't think people understand that, it's not a chai pe charcha conversation, like a lot of people come to me and they're like, "Arey, but what are you doing? You're just talking," right? It's not just talking. We do a lot of in-depth work. While you are talking to me, I've assessed you at 10 spaces across different dimensions, at lower layers, intrinsic layers. You don't see that, obviously. Like, it's very easily to be a doctor today, dealing with physical aspects, because you can tangibly see it. Unfortunately, with therapy, there's so much of abstract work that happens. A lot of people are not able to understand the amount of study and work and the skill to have this therapeutic conversation. And it's not just a random conversation without an end goal. At least I don't practice it like that. Whenever I sit for a conversation, I'm very goal oriented. I'm like, what do you want from today? While it can change in the process of our conversation, it's okay to tell me that today I want to rant. And that's what I want. Today, I really want to work on something. You have a certain sense of responsibility when you come as a client as well. I'm not going to sit here and constantly probe you. That's very old school. While it does exist and it works for a lot of people, but you need to show up for yourself as well while I'm helping you from point A to point B.
So where I'm trying to ask at is that, cost is not going to change, and I acknowledge that it's a lot of skill. What are some of the, what are some of the things that people can do? So I've kind of been through some books where there would be, you read and then you journal, and there would be like clear prompts, or there could be, so what are, and maybe that's a good segue into the role of AI in this. Yeah. So any thoughts that you have that, one is, what are existing solutions? And in the future, what do you think AI can contribute?
Okay. So let's take this one first. Let's talk about solutions, concrete solutions. I think insurance. Like, if I had to make a request or a plea to big finance houses, etc., banks, I think just the way we have insurance for physical health, mental health insurance should be somewhere up top, so that it's easier for people to do this. I've seen that a lot of people want to do this, but yes, it is expensive. And while you might not understand why it is so expensive, it should not stop you. It really should not stop you. So I think mental health insurance should be something that people definitely work towards. That is one very tangible, plausible solution. I think there are 1 or 2 banks that are coming up and saying that, yes, now we're, working towards mental health. I hope people do apply for it. I hope they take it up. Going to the AI part, I think AI in this space is a bit of a boon. And there is a lot of, there are people who may not require therapy, but they require some sort of support. Okay? So this in-betweenness, AI can be very helpful here. So you have journaling, you have your very quick response AI chatbots that are based on very formula-oriented therapies like REBT and CBT and things like that. They're based on the thinking. So if you have let's say a thinking problem, a thinking issue, it could be of great assistance. While I might not be able to recognize that, a lot of people come to me and they say our problem is that we think like that. It's actually not a thinking problem. It could be a very emotional problem. We use thinking as a mechanism. Tell us how to do it. Formula batao, apan kar denge. It's a shortcut. There's no shortcut. There is no shortcut. It's lovely. Just yesterday when I was going through Level SuperMind, right? Y'all have covered great aspects of mind, body, spirit. And there is sleep. People don't realize that, it's important to sleep. It's important to sleep at a particular time. The meditative sleep notes that y'all have, very, very good. The journaling, the prompts across different, aspects are very good. These things will help you offload. It'll help you offload a little bit. Make some more space for yourself. Don't become that pressure cooker. So it's very important to take that support. AI might have a lot of curses and cons, as does everything. But the boon is that there are these things now. Yeah. Take it for granted. Go ahead. I mean, you can go out and, have a great meal and spend $1,000. You can invest in this for sure. So you can do these things. But sit and identify where your problem is. AI might not be able to show up for you if your problem is at a very intrinsic feeling level.
Understood. I want to come back to trauma. Sure. It's a nice segue to AI, but I want to just bring it back to trauma. And, we were talking about fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Yeah.
And so what's the right way to overcome trauma, in these 4 Fs? I don't know if that's the right question also, but instinctively it feels to me that, fight is the way out. And it's tough. It's incredibly tough to fight. It is. Because you've been burdened by everything that you're going through. Yeah. So when you guide, firstly, is fight the right way?
There are a lot of layers here. While fight might be the right way, and that's possibly the ideal answer where you stand up for yourself and, you're able to move forward. Hota nahi hai. It doesn't happen. It's very complicated, in a collectivistic society, when you say, stand up for your rights and, put this parent in jail, right? You just can't. Yeah. You just can't. And while that might be the right thing to do, your mind and your body will not be able to, because you're also struggling with what has happened right now. And then you're struggling with this relationship dynamic that has changed. As a child, you are so dependent on somebody. You give your authenticity to them, your authentic self to them. And when you are rejected and when you are in a space that is unsafe, you can't fathom what is right from wrong. You can't think in that moment. So very instinctually, it happens that you might just freeze. So ideal answer, go ahead, fight for yourself. Also, as a child, can you really? Yeah. You don't even know your options. As an adult, I know my options. Today, if something happens to me, I'm able to stand up and I'm able to say, that's not okay. I got boundaries and I will take you to court. So it really depends on each person's resilience level as well.
I guess I mean there's something that's coming to me with respect to this, which is probably, maybe I'm wrong in framing it saying fight. Probably the answer is somewhere which is, if you're freezing, unfreeze first.
Yes.
If you're fawning, unfawn first.
When you're sitting to work on yourself and you're seeing what is your reaction, if your reaction is to freeze, then work on this. This is a lot of regulation that you need to work on. Your nervous system has learned that you freeze, let it pass by, and then you come out of it and you just carry on with your day. That's what happens to a lot of people. That's the only way that they can cope, right? You have to sit with somebody and you have to learn to unfreeze. You have to be able to see another part of you that can work on responding to situations.
Yeah.
Okay?
Is that, is that you spoken about the unconscious mind and the subconscious mind? So when you say, like, I'm just trying to ask if it's relevant and is there a connection between that? Because almost in some ways when we are freezing, we are unconsciously freezing or subconsciously freezing. Would you say that?
Yes. Like
I may be mixing up some concepts, but
so I would like to say that it's a very primitive response. It comes, think of like cave people, for example, right? You are able to sort of identify that loud noises scare you. So it's a primitive response that I will go and say myself, I will sit in a cave. Also, fear of heights. So those are things that are very instinctual, more than unconscious and subconscious. Eventually, you learn it. You're actually able to very consciously go into that state. So people learn this to cope with the environment. They have to learn. So at one level, while it comes automatically from a part of you that is hidden, which is your unconscious and subconscious, right? Unconscious, we don't have that sort of access because that access comes when we sleep. But the subconscious, sure. Like we sort of pull something out from there and then we learn it and we learn that this works. It's from a very instinctual part of you that it comes.
And, with respect to trauma, there's also important topic to touch upon of sexual trauma. So, like, and what I mean by sexual trauma, I'll just go into it a bit more because, there are statistics of how 1 in every 3 women face some sort of sexual boundary being crossed.
Yes.
Whether it be through teasing or groping or, in a more extreme and unacceptable case of rape. And I don't want to take the time to speak about men right now, but let's focus on the women right now, which is that, you may have gone through this and then you are, so what I'm trying to label as sexual trauma is a trauma that you experience as a result of a improper sexual encounter or touch. And in that case, what's happening to women today in India, especially people that you see or you would have encountered or seen across the board, what is the state of sexual trauma in India right now?
Okay. So when women come to me, since we're being very specific, there are a lot of women who've learned to live with it. Unfortunately, when we know the right answer is that we should not and we should have boundaries, but they've learned to live with it. Some people, don't have options. So, if you, let's say, you are the only breadwinner and you are going to a working place, which is full of these activities, right? Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who unfortunately stay because there are no options, because they have to provide. So they sort of overlook it. They don't think that they have any other option. And these are all very real things. While I understand these things, I would say that it would be most healthy to not be in these environments. this should not be tolerated. And then it also happens that...
And then would you bring it back to your pressure cooker analogy that you're like keeping it in?
Yeah.
And you're keeping it in?
Yeah.
And then you just...
It just bursts one day. It will burst one day. And then there is the lot that sort of is able to draw boundaries. They are not going to tolerate it and they will say something about it. You know, that population will also be given heat. That, you know, why are you making this why are you blowing this out? Yeah, why are you making such a big deal? Like, it's not a big deal. For you, it might not be a big deal. For me, it is. And, you know, a lot of this sort of gaslighting also happens, right? Ye to hua hi nahi. This didn't happen only. You're just making it up. Where's the proof of it? Right? A lot of people come up with these things. These are very real things. And in most cases, sometimes people don't have proof. They don't have proof.
So can you break this a little bit more? You know, and I'm just trying to look at this from the point of view of a young 20-something Indian girl who may have had some form of sexual boundary being crossed growing up. What are some typical instances? I know typical is a wrong word because each person is unique. Right. But what are some common things that girls get their boundaries crossed on? And then how is it showing up?
Okay. So you just have...
Like, I'm talking specifically in Indian context, you know, because I just want some people to be able to see it, relate that, look, this is what's happening to me. And then, okay, that maybe this is the long way out, or this is what I need to focus on so that they can, you know, get the right kind of help.
So the things that happen externally, unfortunately, are just the gaze of people. You have a lot of people leching. The word is leching, right? You have people brushing by in a very inappropriate manner and saying that, oh, but, you know, we were just in each other's way and things like that. There are better ways to pass people or things like that. Yeah, I understand, like, you know, in local trains and all, it's on a daily, unfortunately, man, woman.
No, but these are harsh realities. Like, it's the gaze, the improper touch. In some cases, groping.
Yeah. Very consciously groping and making it seem like, oh, you know, nothing happened right now. Like, what are you talking about? And you will know. I mean, we're pretty sensitive to catching on vibes, right? Like, as human beings, we know who is touching us with what sort of intention as well. So that is also something. You also have lewd commenting. You have people passing like what could be a compliment. Identify it. See where is.
So then what happens in that pressure cooker then?
Okay, so if the pressure cooker already exists, by that we are saying that there has been sexual trauma in the system as well. The unfortunate bit is that there are times that you will not be able to identify it. You might fall prey to it, and you might end up in multiple relationships that are toxic in nature and not for you.
You know, there is a analogy of the pressure cooker that I faced some sexual trauma, which could be any of these things that we spoke about, improper touch, groping, etc. And that comes into your pressure cooker. You've decided not to deal with it. And then, so multiple relationships could be something that you put out as an outcome.
Yeah. Because, you know, when you've been through sexual trauma, you've had people destroying your boundaries. Your physical boundaries, your mental boundaries, your spiritual boundaries, everything gets destroyed. So you might not know a good relationship from a bad relationship. You might just be like, it's a relationship. A lot of people also face sexual addiction. You know, because the body was used to being gratified at a very abnormal level. So it just happens. It's very unfortunate. It's very scary. There are also a lot of sexual dysfunctions that women face. You know, you have vaginismus, you have anorgasmia. These are very real things that happen and people don't realize.
What are vaginismus and anorgasmia?
So, anorgasmia is basically when you're not able to reach a climax, an orgasm. You're not able to achieve that at all. A lot of women face that.
And what could be some of the most common reasons?
It could be sexual trauma. One is that, right? Also, a lot of women don't know their bodies very, very well. Sex is such a taboo. People use sex for just like procreation and nothing else. And the dialogue around sex, right? It's so, okay, you will use it only to procreate. There's nothing about pleasure. There's nothing about any of these things. And this also, like, I guess this is also a very rebellious conversation to put out there, but it's the truth. If you don't know, I mean, how will you progress? How do you know yourself? How do you know what do you like, what do you not like, right?
And vaginismus?
Vaginismus is basically the walls of your vagina, they just sort of shut. It's very penetrative sex, is very, very painful. It's very hard for the women.
And that could be because of the sexual trauma?
Definitely. Because, I mean, it's very common for a lot of people to know that, sex for us, as in women, starts here. It doesn't start biologically. So already the conversation around sex is so shunned, right? That people give you no space to bloom in that direction. And it's very important. It's very important to have this dialogue and this conversation that this is a healthy thing. A lot of people are dysregulated emotionally because their sex lives are incomplete. There's something that they're insatiated.
And what's this, it's very interesting that you're speaking about this, that they are dysregulated because their sex lives are incomplete. So if your sex life is not good, or let's not say not good, but it's incomplete, as you said, what do we mean by sex life being incomplete? Is it that you're just not having it, or is it just that you...
It could be different for different people, to be very honest with you. Like, for some people, it is that, they're not being adventurous enough, right? These are conversations you need to have with your partner, right? You're not being adventurous enough. You're not getting stimulated enough emotionally, intellectually, physiologically. Know your bodies better. That's so important. It's so important. There are lots of times that...
Do a lot of couples come to you?
Couples come to me, of course, couples.
And do they... are people talking about this?
People are talking about it. And like, what's also interesting is that geriatric couples are coming, and geriatric people are talking about sexual relationships as well, which is so beautiful to see that, people after a certain age where, the...
When you say geriatric, can you break that down for the listener?
Yeah, sure. It could be, I mean, I would like to say, like, we would think that, our parents and our grandparents are not sexually active. It's absolutely normal to be active all the way to like 80, 90, till whenever, because it's not just about penetrative sex. It's about the other things as well that you do. It could just be lying in bed with each other, sort of stroking each other pleasurably. It doesn't have to always end up in penetrative sex. You can explore in different ways, right? So I would like to say, like, with respect to like the Indian public, like, I know like geriatrics is 60 plus, but we also wouldn't think that our 40, 50-year-old parents, we would like to think that they're not, but they should. They should. If they're not, please encourage them to. It sounds really rebellious again, but they will be happier. And also, you will form your intimate relationships looking at the people around you, right? That's what happens. Like, there are lots of families who are very out and about, and they, sort of, nowadays there's everything on like Netflix, and, you can't miss anything, and that sort of creates an awkward vibe. Like, now I can't see movies with my parents and all. Why? Everyone's not brought and dropped by a stork, right? Yeah. It's the reality of things. Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay to make this, like, I always say, make mental health a living room conversation. Sex also should be. Like, today when we educate our kids, it's important. It's important to tell them the birds and the bees, like we call it, right? It's important to have these conversations early in life. Don't hide it from people. There's a very scary statistic of girls who don't know what a period is. It is when they have their first period, they're like, what's going on? Something's wrong with me. And they come crying. And it's a taboo to talk about it. And then when they're taught about it also, they're taught in this taboo manner. Stop teaching things in the taboo manner. You will also have a better relationship with your kids. That this is what the reality is, this is what happens. It's okay. It was not done with you. You can change that narrative. For a lot of things, whether it's mental health, whether it's sex, change that narrative. Talk to people and say it's okay. This happens.
This last part that I want to focus on this trauma discussion is around repression and burial of what caused you the trauma. So, because what I've also experienced a bit is that here's the trauma, and then there is the mountains of things that you keep putting on top of it to just cover it up. It could be food, it could be drugs, it could be casual relationships, it could be X, Y, Z, and each person has their own mountains, and then there's the repressed trauma which is buried, and as time passes, if I don't even see it, it'll just leave my mind. So when I have to go deep into the mountain of the things that I buried it under, how do I do that? I know it's not an easy question, but
I will say this is not something you can do on your own. What happens when we make this mountain on top of something, someone needs to hold your hand to take you down through the layers and then meet it. And when you have to meet it and when you have to sit with it, it's very painful. It's very hard. It's something you've not been wanting to do, So it's something that you need someone's help with. This I would not I would not put AI out there to help you through this, because it's many, 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 many layers that you're working through. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of rage when people come and they start working on these things, and they've been so hyper independent for so long, and to show a version of themselves outside, and now they've become something that they can't relate to, because they're meeting a new version of themselves or a version that they have suppressed. It's difficult. It's very difficult. So to go through that anger, that rage, grief. There's a lot of grief, because along with trauma, you lose a certain part of you. So you're grieving the loss of that part, and that you'll never be that part again. The hope is that maybe you'll be a different, better version, or just a different version that you are able to love and accept. Why better? Just be content with the new version of you.
I feel like for anybody who's listening to this, is a lot of re-listening required, because some of the words that you're saying, you've lost a part of yourself, that needs some reflection, pause and reflection on that, because that's it's important to understand that and break it down. I'll switch gears a little bit and move to another topic that gets spoken about a lot in comments and in online discourse, is around narcissism. And there is some linkage between narcissists who cause the trauma. So maybe we can tie that back at the end, but there's a lot of first question is, who is a narcissist? How do you describe a narcissist?
Sure. Okay. So I think it's a little important to dial back to that there are people with narcissistic traits, and traits are characteristics that you have. It might not be pervasive over time. Your personality, however, is across time. You've been this since you knew yourself, since you met yourself. Okay? So essentially the people that, that are getting spoken about are the ones that mostly have what we call narcissistic personality disorder. Okay? And just for public to understand who are these people. And there are many types of narcissistic people as well. So obviously it's all about them. The narrative, they are in charge of the narrative, whether it is at home, whether it is outside, whether it's professionally, it is always about them. It starts with them, it ends with them. Okay? They're very devoid of most emotions from themselves, from other people as well. They're not with themselves because it's very difficult, right, to be in touch with yourself. It's very hard. Glitz, glamour, shosha, all these things, materialistic things. They love to be complimented, they love to be worshipped, and they will find that dynamic in people. And if you don't, they will not be around you. They're also great at using people as like a commodity. You are the you're the means to an end. That's what happens. So essentially, you would see these traits in a lot of people. Some people live like this across time. There's no other way that they live. And then there are people who sometimes show certain things, like gloating. Once in a while, you'll see somebody gloating about a skill set that they have. They're not narcissistic. They're just gloating. That's in the moment. It's just fleeting. So that's different. Don't think of this person to be narcissistic. I mean, today when you've achieved so much that you've achieved, right? If you gloat a bit, not really a narcissistic person, right? It's in the other things that you do. Narcissistic people also don't think about the collective. Like even leaders, they will not think about the us. They will not think about the larger audience. It'll always be about them. You have overt narcissists, you have covert, you have those who are for the collective. So let's go back a bit. So you have overt ones. Let's just say the quintessential ones that you see, compliments, flattery, etc. It's about them. The room is about them. The vibe is about them. Covert, they sort of fly under. They fly under people. They'll meet you. They'll be very nice. Lots of flattery, lots of help, lots of attention. And then before you know it, they're under your skin and they sort of control your life. That's what narcissistic people want. They want control. They also want you to be enmeshed in their life. It's almost as having like somebody to worship you 24/7. So
they want you to
worship them. It's about them. So there's a lot of that. You'll always see a narcissistic person ending up with somebody who's very submissive, and the submissive person sort of gets into the narrative of this is my be all and end all. Oh, but at the end of the day, she takes care of me. So it's absolutely fine. It's not fine. It's never fine. If you come from a home like that, and if you end up with somebody like that, right? And this is not just like with men or something. No, there are women narcissists also. So it's across the board. It's not specific to anyone. Like there's a higher statistics of overt narcissistic men and covert with women. It's under the radar and sort of comes in, right? You also have those who sort of live off the collective. They will sort of appear like they're doing good for the society. You will see them also engage in a lot of moral rage, and there's a lot of attention being given to them. Like you have a lot of these what we call sages and speakers and this and that. There is a large tone of narcissism that constantly happens. They're all about receiving validation and constant compliments. That's what they want. They live off your emotions. And then obviously you have the antagonist and the malignant, which is the ones who are constantly in competition and rival. And then there's the one which is almost criminal, and some are criminal. You'll see some of the criminals that are spoken about in history. My favorite and common reference point is Ted Bundy, right? Very, very charming, very narcissistic, also criminal personality. what we call antisocial personality. So this is your spectrum of people. You will also see that the relationship is skewed. It's very, very skewed. And you are stripped of all your emotions. You don't exist. There will be a lot of gaslighting, right? Oh, you're upset? Why are you upset? I should be upset. I treat you so well and this is what you do, right? You don't have any rights. You don't exist. There's also the famous breadcrumbing, love crumbing, right? I'll give you enough so that you are hooked and you don't leave. I will not tell you that the relationship is working or not working, but because there's a certain poverty of emotions in your system, you will see certain people very okay that they're getting 1 and they're giving 9. It's skewed.
That's what you mean by it's skewed.
It's skewed. It's very skewed. And the larger narrative is, theek hai na, this person takes care of you, provides for you, so let it be. If you have the options, please don't let it be. I know a lot of people struggle and they will say that, it's easy to talk when you have. A lot of people have, a lot of people don't leave, let me tell you. So.
Yeah. I want to double click on, that's a great canvas that you spread. I want to double click on the covert narcissist because I feel like that's spoken about a little less. The overt is so perhaps a bit of discourse more on it,
Sure.
Or at least in my opinion. But I feel on the covert, which is this. At the surface, I'm not a narcissist, but before you know it, I want to do it. So I want to just unpack that one a little bit. Can you talk more about the covert narcissist? And, how does the covert narcissist operate?
The covert narcissistic person will operate that they will come across as very amicable, very, very nice, very giving, very present, very there, right? You can't help but love this person then. You make them a part of your life and it's very quick. It's very quick, the connection is made very quickly and, I've met you right now, but I feel like there's such a huge connection between us and, besties forever or whatever it is, right? Those are the dialogues that come and everyone loves listening to these things, right? But before you know it, in all of this, there will be times where they will find moments to hijack your life.
What do you mean by hijack your life?
Where, let's say that, you've done something or you want to do something, you like something, they will take that moment to sort of rain on your parade. They'll be like, no, that's not nice. That's not good. How will you carry this off, And it's this subtle, I don't want to use the word abuse, but it's just a very subtle way of demeaning and putting people down as well. Like, there'll be times that somebody wants to try something or do something. How will you do it? How will you manage it? Oh, you won't be able to do it. And then, because that trust is developed between the two people, it'll be like, yeah, if you are saying, then yeah, you're probably right. And then there are many of these instances that happen.
So you build trust and then you'll demean, and then you build trust and demean.
Exactly.
Okay. So, and it's interesting that you said that it's more, would you say that it's more associated with women?
Yeah.
Covert narcissism?
Yeah.
So, why? Is it because women are more trusting? Or is it in society that women are not more in the overt roles?
They're not more in the overt roles. There are a few in the overt roles, obviously, there are. But, if we take the larger population, let's say, we're taught to be humble and, sort of play it down and things like that. So the way to get in is through that mode.
And it's such a delicate topic because, as you were speaking, I'm like, I have or have had narcissistic traits. So, and I've kind of over time had to work really hard on on the narcissistic traits. So, like at the workplace, for example, I have to work really hard to make sure that when I'm communicating with somebody, I am not trying to drive an agenda. Because it's very easy when you're trying to drive a ship in a certain direction that you will, and you are with, I would probably classify, if I go off the rails, I would classify into an overt narcissist. But personally me speaking, and I know that in my life at instances I have been at that juncture, and then I've had to raise my awareness to work on it. And in my own work, I feel like the spiritual process has helped me ground as well. So the combination of raising my awareness and bringing elements of spirituality or scripture to understand human truth to arrive at that. But I feel like, so coming back to the workplace, I have to always check myself. I have to check my energy.
That's a lot of work. That is a lot of work, because you are a leader. You are a leader, and I feel like, and this is probably, this question will come from you, but leaders are charismatic. People look to leaders. Like, it's very rare to find leaders who are achieving large and big who don't have narcissistic traits, right? It's like it really depends on what you do with your narcissistic traits, how you use it or abuse it. So it's very good that you have this knowledge that I do have some dialogues. There are some narratives in my system which I need to work on, which also tells me that you've not gone over to the, to the disorder side.
But it's also telling me that it's very easy to go there.
It's very easy to go there. It is very easy to go there and make this about yourself. But you seem to be aware that there's a larger collective behind you.
But that's why I'm so interested in the covert, because, this whole, and that is the human mind, because you can seem to be aware.
Yeah.
But you could be falling into covert. So that state of, this hyper awareness to be in all the time is constant work.
It is because it's also your personality, right? It's your personality. It's like wearing clothes. It's like wearing clothes, you're doing it, it's like breathing, and you're like, change your breathing. You can't change your breathing overnight. Yeah, sure. Like, if you have meditative exercises and, it teaches you, and then, over time you build the awareness, you're then eventually able to work on those things. But almost immediately, it will not happen. And that's the idea of consistency and practice, right? Over time, it'll happen. It'll happen differently. And also, maybe the whole cloth will not change, but there will be parts that will look different. The design will slowly look different.
With respect to narcissism, because it's such a wide subject, and I just kind of realizing that in the initial spread that you spread out with the cloth, which is probably I want to focus more on narcissism inside relationships. Sure. Because that's where you have interpersonal dynamic between two partners. And typically, if I'm, when you're seeing narcissistic relationships, where either one partner is narcissistic or maybe both, how does that relationship look like? And if, maybe if somebody's listening in and is in a relationship, what are the things that they can check with respect to their relationship and narcissism living inside the relationship?
One is that.
So what would the partner typically do? Like what would a narcissistic partner typically do?
A narcissistic partner would, I'll tell you what the relationship looks like. It looks like it is one unit, but a very unhealthy one unit. It's so enmeshed, and the whole relationship is about one person. Have you eaten? Have you slept? Have you gone to office? There's no two-way street. It's a one-way street. That's what it looks like. Everything is about them.
What if both are narcissists?
That's a very interesting one. I've seen that successful narcissistic people have their own spaces. They also come together but they also have their own spaces where they are acknowledged. So, like, you have your power couples and things like that, right? How do they exist? They're like in the limelight, on television, etc., etc. They have separate spaces. They do their thing and they also come back.
So, okay, so let's say that's one dynamic, and then you're saying that otherwise the relationship becomes about one person.
Yeah. It becomes about one person and everything too starts and ends with that one person. I think there's this very worship-like characteristic that is very prominent, like the deity and the worshipping. It's very prominent over there. That one person is on a pedestal. That person cannot be wrong at all. Also, when you're with a narcissistic person, you will know that some of your needs are met, all of your needs are not met. Just enough that I keep you there. Stable, unstable, doesn't matter. It also depends on the narrative that you've come from. If you've been taught to make do with what you are getting, then you'll be like, this is normal. But it's not. It's not. Your sense of self, your worth, your esteem, it all takes a hit. Literally, I've seen people reeling once they come out of these relationships. They're constantly doubting what they think or what they're doing. They will always go to a friend and say, I'm about to buy this. What do you think? And it's a very simple purchase, but they will keep asking, like, is this okay? Do you like this? They're constantly looking for validation because the narcissistic person has stripped you of everything. Your self-confidence goes for a toss and you can't make any decisions. So it's very difficult. Once you are in that dynamic, it's very hard to come out of the dynamic.
And how do people come out of it then? Without breaking the relationship? Yeah, like obviously one way is that the relationship is not healthy.
You have to break the relationship.
So a narcissistic relationship.
You have to break the relationship. There's no way out of it. And this is Dr. Ramani's work. Dr.
Ramani.
She's done a lot of work in narcissism, and it's so clear in the work. And even even when people come to me, I mean, it's very rare that a narcissistic person will come because, first of all, it's never their fault. It's never the fault. So you will see very few people coming in to give, to do therapy. They'll come for attendance. Oh, you know, my spouse told me I have to come to make this work, so I'm here. But I don't think there's anything wrong. They love playing the victim. They love being victim. They'll spin a beautiful story from their end. And it will look pristine and justified where they are. Forgiveness is the best thing you can do to a narcissistic person. That's what they want. Because they want to keep you. They want to keep you. And if you forgive them and if you genuinely believe that they are going to change because you've forgiven them, because those are also things that we are taught, you should forgive, and it's very large of you to forgive. They don't change. They don't change. Please don't expect a narcissistic spouse or parent to change. They will attract you back into the wormhole that you have gotten out of. So the real answer that a lot of people might not like to hear is that you have to leave and you have to detach. And a lot of people really suffer because there is this separation abuse. Your narcissistic person will not leave you. They will make sure that they remind you what your place is. So they will come back.
How do they remind you what your place is?
It could be physical, verbal, sexual, assaults, financial. They'll take away your money. They'll take away all sorts of support. And also in like relationships, you'll see they will separate you from the herd. Your friends, you won't have friends anymore. Why do you need friends? I'm there now. I'm your be all and end all. they'll never share you. So the real answer is you need to leave. It's very difficult. I know it's very difficult, and healing takes a very long time. But if you decide to take a step and do little bit every day, little drops of water make a mighty ocean. You'll get somewhere with yourself.
Are we seeing a lot of divorce because of narcissistic relationships?
Currently, people can look at it as a good thing or a bad thing, however they want to see it. But I think what's happening is that people are very vocal about their emotions. So they're not okay being unhappy. They're not okay. Obviously, when it comes to abuse, I will always be on the part of you need to leave. I don't know about whether boundaries will work or not. Again, it's very subjective, but because the generation is so woke, right? Sometimes it can go in this way that it's not even required to be so woke or so sensitive. Like, there will be a lot of heat on this point that, okay, you should say when you are unhappy. Yes, while that is okay, look at the other side as well. Like, if you stay and if you decide that you want to work on something which can be worked on, you need to have the resilience. You need to have that flexibility. You as a person and the two of you together. The couple needs to be resilient. If you decide that this is going to be solution focused and we're going to work at it every single day, and you walk in that tangible direction. Like, I don't believe when people come and say, I went to Mount Everest, I sat, I meditated, now I'm different. How are you different? Show me how you're different. I need to see that your behavior is different, that you're not reacting and that you're responding. It's very, very different.
This, with respect to relationships and relationship dynamics and, this, I want to go back to divorce and, the reasons why we are seeing more divorce right now. So if it's not due to narcissistic relationships necessarily, one part you're alluding to is that it's because people are more woke and able. Yeah, they're more awake. I don't like this term woke so much because I feel like it has a negative. Yeah, it's got a derogatory sense to it now.
Yeah, it does.
More awake, like.
Yeah, they're more vocal about how they feel, and while that is honestly it's great. I also feel that we live in a very reactive generation. We're not stopping. We're not seeing how can we work and fix things.
Because would you also link it back to the trauma discussion that we had earlier? So, like, you're facing trauma. Sometimes, and I'm assuming that because it's the beautiful the tapestry of life is that there's all of these human beings living their different lives and they're living out their different traumas through this world, and then there's connections being formed, and you kind of have it in a way where, like, okay, some people have their trauma, and then they may, for whatever reason, societal reasons, choose to get married at a certain age, or because family said so, or because of situation said so. I'm not aware, and I've gone into it unconsciously. Or subconsciously, I don't know what's the right word, but I've gone into it, and then I'm like, damn, then you spoke about that part of, sexual trauma also, like it's showing up in the way I'm, when I'm making love to my partner, that I'm just not able to do it, and then that wakes up something in me, and then I'm like, my needs are not met, and I'm not who I'm being. And I'm guessing this combination of, like, variety of cocktails is happening to so many people at the same time.
There is a cocktail because, let's go back a bit. When you face trauma, there is a certain dysregulation that happens in the system, right? Then you end up with certain types of people that you are familiar with. Trauma, no trauma, sometimes you just end up with what you are familiar with, okay? And that might not work for you. That might not be what is the thing that you need. It's one thing that you want, it's one thing that you need. I always believe like a really good relationship, like with over time, right? Like in your 20s, you love the love. But I feel like in your 30s, like I'm more about the peace. I really would love to be with someone who's good for my nervous system. Like that's what I look for. 40s again, it will be very different. Love looks different across age, right? Going back to the part of divorce, yes, you end up in spaces because of societal pressure. This is very common, very common. And there are some people who said, yeah, I got married. I knew this was wrong, but I got married because, society. And if I had gotten married, I wouldn't have gotten support during my divorce. At least now I have support. This is very rampant, very, very rampant. And there is a part of your life also, you possibly have not finished living. A lot of people get married very early and they really feel like they've not finished living their youth. So you will see them slowly withdrawing from their partners, etc., and then eventually saying, I'm really sorry, I don't want to do this. There's also cheating. Because I'm not able to get everything from one person. And this is not condoning anything. It happens. And that's what people need to understand, that these things happen. Right? I'm not getting something from somebody, so I'm going to go outside. It happens again. It happens very naturally. You might not set the intention consciously, I'm going to do it, I'm going to go out. No, but it happens. You're constantly looking. You're looking outside.
So why does cheating happen? When I acknowledge that you're saying it happens.
Yeah.
But, when you say that your partner may not be able to fulfill you, so why does cheating happen then? And what's happening as common scenarios in people's lives when cheating is happening?
Okay, so common scenarios, this is really important to talk about again. The partners are not present in their relationship. You are, while I understand that you are providing. Now, this is not particularly to men or to women. Two people have to show up in their marriage. If you've decided that you want to get married, you need to show up. It's like going to work. You're not going to get a salary if you don't work. Relationships are transactional in nature. You cannot be absent in your marriage. I've seen this a lot. A lot of people are like, this person is not there because of their job, whatever their occupation is, right? This other person is left with a void. I didn't marry you so that you could go out and, you could work and you could just provide. I also married you because, we had an emotional connect. We had an emotional bond. I have certain needs and wants besides, roti kapda, right? So that's getting very it's again very skewed. And we all sort of, we all celebrate, this hustle, workaholic culture. Like the one thing that I want to share with people is that my father always taught me, and this is something his work partner always taught him, that you don't need to take so much of work that you don't go back home to your wife and children. It's important to go back. That work-life balance is so important. Your work will happen. Paisa aause, like he used to say, because he was Parsi. Paisa aega. But this time that you have with your wife and your children, your wife is young as she is now, your children are as young as they are now. And they will remember that you were not there. And you will not get to experience them while they are at this stage.
So if you had to say something to Narayan Murthy, and I'm serious about this because, at a societal level, if you compound working 70 hours a week across a large part of the population, and I think he has a point. So one part of his point is that this is India's opportunity to take the leap forward. And I'm not asking you to respond to him to diss him.
Right.
But I think he has a point.
Yes.
But at the same time, there is, there could be the repercussion of this emotional absence
yes.
at a societal level. What would that look like?
I mean, what I would say to him, I would say to anybody who's a workaholic, that you need to show up. Like, yes, if I'm talking from a task force HR point of view, I will look at productivity, I will look at numbers. But if I'm sitting across, then I would tell anybody who's addicted to work for whatever reason. It could be that they have seen their own parent work in this manner, and work is worship. While work is worship, then you cannot really blame somebody, right, who has decided to be with you, that, oh, I did this and you went out. I've met a lot of people who are not remorseful. They're very in line with their emotions, that this person was not there. Even after communicating, this person did not show up. What am I supposed to do?
So when you say they were not remorseful, in what sense?
Like, we would ideally think that, the people who cheat should be remorseful, they should have shame and they should have guilt. I've seen a lot of people who don't go through that. They're very clear emotionally that this is what I needed and this is not what was given to me. And I waited and I waited and I waited and I communicated, and it still didn't make a difference. We tend to get very complacent. So, I mean, again, if I was talking to a workaholic, while there is great opportunity and there are, great ambitions, I would say you need to find time to show up. You need to find that time. There has to be that time. I also know, like, great power couples who have to, I mean, it's sad, but it is what it is. They're building empires. They're the best at what they do. But they have to schedule their kids into their day so that they get to see them for half an hour. What am I going to get from that half an hour as a child? And, kids are being brought up by nannies. What am I learning? Where am I going? What am I doing? So I would say, please show up. Please show up. You might be the best mind on the planet and very successful at what you do, but you also need to show up at home.
I feel like we've touched so many different topics today and gone into many things. I have many questions, but I feel like I want to leave this one here so that maybe just to acknowledge to people listening till here that, this is the part where possibly to process, because there's so many parts we've touched around trauma, around sexual trauma. We've touched on narcissism in relationships, and we've touched a bit on work and work-life balance. And I want to thank you for going in to so many things and then like really just connecting them and being patient while I'm whiz-darting across. I could tell that when we had the discussion off camera also, I could tell that, probably your energy is a bit more like go deeper into. And then I'm trying to dart that through. So thank you very much for bearing with it and really entertaining it. And thank you for sharing so much.
But I just have to say, like, a lot of what we've discussed today is sometimes might be unheard of. It might trigger certain people. It might have a lot of anger to some people. Sit with your emotions. Acknowledge why this conversation has disturbed you, or, sort of why is it staying with you, right? Sit with it and see what you want to do about it. Like, is your reality the only reality? Is there something outside? Is there something that you are not seeing? Because also change comes with a lot of resistance. We see a lot of people in therapy, they'll throw a big tantrum in the beginning. And it's almost, you can't penetrate through that armor. But when they sit in silence, you'll get somewhere.
That's a great point. I also feel like this is one where maybe I would suggest where people take a pen and paper and sit with it.
For sure. please take time out and introspect. You need to be there for your relationships, but the relationship that you need to show up for the most is the one you have with yourself. Because when you stop working tomorrow and you're left with nothing, you're left with you. And if you are not happy with you, what was the point of this journey?
Awesome. On that note, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
हमारे ऐप पर हम एक लिमिटेड टाइम ऑफ़र रन कर रहे हैं. ओवर 50,000 पीपल आर यूजिंग द ऐप और उन्हें बहुत बहुत वैल्यू मिला है. उनकी लाइफ ट्रांसफॉर्म हो गई है. थोड़े लोगों के 35 kgs लूज़ हुए हैं. थोड़े लोगों के लाइफ में इतने सारे बदलाव आ गए हैं. स्ट्रेस कम हो गया है, एंग्जाइटी कम हो गई है, फोकस इंक्रीज़ हो गया है. तो अगर आपको भी अपने लाइफ में ये लाना है तो ये लिमिटेड टाइम ऑफ़र आपके लिए स्पेशली, प्लीज़ गो एंड अवेल इट नाउ. और अगर आपको नहीं भी करना है तो ऐप में 7 days फ्री ट्रायल है. आप प्लीज़ डाउनलोड कीजिए एंड एन्जॉय द ऐप एंड प्लीज़ गिव अस योर फीडबैक.